All right. Yes, that's right. We are here live again. This is Deep Space Nine at 9ish. We are talking everything Deep Space Nine, the penultimate episode of season 2, episode 25, titled Tribunal. The start of the saga, guys, of O'Brien being tortured and all of us being okay with it. But let's bring in our guest without further ado. We have my brother. We'll bring him in first. Oh, there he is.
Oh, sorry, Jeff. Hi, Jeff. Your name is Jeff Mater.
My name is Jeff Mater. Oh, I mean, if you don't know who I am and you're tuning in to Deep Space 9 at 9ish, I don't know where you've been. But I am Jeff.
Yeah, you always have to introduce yourself. I'm just saying. You always have to
okay. Here's the guy that breaks down Deep Space 9 at 9ish. It's Jeff. I also do Flex Double F with Jeff. Stay tuned for that. But let's bring in the tag team couple that breaks all the Deep Space Nine down for us, Kevin and Ashley Millard. Welcome again to another episode of Deep Space Nine at 9ish. Welcome. Great to have you. But let's get into this episode, guys. First off, right off the top, I'd like to talk about who directed the episode. Avery Brooks.
Wait, Jeff. Hold on. We have. He
is surprise guest. Let's bring it without before we get into the Deep Space 9 at 9ish breakdown. We have to bring in our most special guest, the guy that breaks down all the Deep Space 9 at 9ish that we want. He's Jaemeel Robinson.
Okay. Hey.
He tells us when things are good, when things are bad. He waves his finger if he likes it. Okay. So let's get into Tribunal here. Okay. I was saying before, the director of this episode, Avery Brooks, is this his first episode that he's directed? I'm not sure. Dave, do you know?
I believe it was. I believe this was his first.
Okay, and this episode, I think, just like again, what Deep Space Nine does so well is have great metaphors for other times in history, other societies, other countries. And I think this episode definitely nails pretty much a lot of judicial systems throughout history that were unfair and were, swift and also prejudices against those, those type of institutions or those people. There's a lot of great metaphors, but let's get a question going here. Dave, what stood out about this episode to you? Like what was, did you like this episode?
I do enjoy this episode. On the rewatch, I don't think it stood up as much as I thought it was going to. I think that in comparison to like the Four Lights episode or two-parter with Picard, this has some pretty brutal scenes in it, and I think that the lack of justice is pretty despairing. And I think that there's a lot of interesting meat on the bone, but it wasn't as strong as I recalled it to be. And the other thing about it too was that it was the first episode after All Good Things. Like this is kind of Deep Space Nine having their first hour of television sort of on their own without their predecessor franchise. Although they'll be going into their movies in the same year, back in 1994.
Yeah, absolutely. And over to Kevin and Ashley, our tag team couple. We just have a quick question for them about like what parallels were you kind of drawing from history or from different things that you were thinking about while watching this episode?
Forget history. They're talking about what's going on right now. Like he's on trial for
current events,
sedition. Like right. This is relevant,
and we already know the outcome of the trial before it's even started.
That's
right. Well, you know what? Maybe I don't need to look back too far. Maybe I should be looking ahead.
Brian got away with it. Hey, that seems to be what's going to happen.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. That's swift justice.
He said those damn Cardis couldn't be trusted, and he got away with it. Okay. He's on the record.
Jaemeel, I have a question for you. I'll throw it over to you. Do you feel like a lot of the moments in this episode are played for comedy? Because I do.
No, absolutely not.
Really? You don't?
Comedy.
I think some of the Cardassian, like some of the things she says.
Was it the Vivek? What was the Vector? Or what was the
yeah.
lawyer?
The lawyer, yeah, the lawyer. A lot of the things I think are played for comedy. No,
I could understand people can take it as comedy, but I personally was getting extremely emotional in terms of anger towards the situation. And so this is going to reveal something about me that you guys might not know. One of my, I have two pet peeves. One pet peeve is I have anxiety when people are getting embarrassed. That's just something I have. When I see someone getting embarrassed about it, it kind of like, I get like very anxious about it. And sometimes I have to like pause or step away from the show and then come back later on because it affects me. Right. Second thing is, I get extremely annoyed and frustrated to the point of like a buildup of anxiety when there is a lot of, how should I say, where like, I don't want to just say injustice, but when people are getting railroaded for the most part. So in this one, the frustration that O'Brien's supposed to feel, I was feeling too, and my anxiety was getting up. In movies like National Security with Steve Zahn's character being railroad, that also frustrates me. I hate that movie with a burning passion, but we're not talking about that. Star Trek 9 at 9ish.
Yeah, it's not Babylon 5 at 5ish. Let's keep it. Keep the train on the tracks here.
Everyone take a drink. That's your Babylon
There's a new
5
prop in the
reference
backdrop
for the evening, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
No. There's gonna be more Babylon 5 demonstrations, perhaps.
Dave, you're cracking up. I didn't quite hear that. We'll just continue on, Jeff.
Okay, but all right, David.
I didn't really answer your question. I can understand where people can get the comedy of the situation, but for me, it was like anxiety.
Okay, I agree with you. Like half of me was laughing at it because it was such a tense and anxiety type situation that you're saying. Some people laugh in those situations because they're so ridiculously tense that you kind of like, what else can you do? And do you feel like the Dave or a tag team couple? Do you guys feel that that like the lawyer is played for comedy and the judge when some of her lines I was like kind of laughing because like it was so ridiculous. It was so like this is the longest trial in Cardassian history, stuff like this.
The lawyer for sure. The lawyer,
yeah.
And it's an amazing performance from him too. He's the best character in the whole
the tag team couple.
Well, the answer is one. They're like a two-headed monster. Like they, so
No,
not always. That's true. They have different perspectives on things. That's true. Okay.
One of them lies and one of them always tells the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that like O'Brien and Keiko? Is that like
O'Brien and Keiko? Okay,
No.
Let's talk about a little about Keiko in this episode. Okay, so what did you like Keiko? Did she overact? Was she a little bit over the top?
Keiko was Keiko.
Yeah.
Wait, so over the top and a little bit kind of like, I don't know, like thought she was like gonna like get in charge. Like, I don't know. I always feel like she oversteps her bounds with like Cisco and those, even when it's like a dire situation, like she's just like, you do this and you mean he's being tortured right now and don't lie to me.
But at the same
not
time,
just like that with O'Brien. She's like that with everyone.
That's true.
But at the same time, her husband is being like detained. Like it was detained in front of her, and she's like, "Bro, you need to figure this out and solve this issue. This is some Federation BS. Has nothing to do with my husband. So you need to figure this out."
I love how Odo does not back Cisco up at all. He's like, yeah, that's true. He probably is being tortured terribly.
Yeah,
that is standard operating procedure. And Cisco's just like, come on, man. Like,
but Cisco doesn't know. But like, outside of his dealings on the station, when has he like had like a long time involvement with Cardassians? Not much.
He hasn't, but he only knows what he's read in reports and things of that nature.
Okay, and that's
No, it's not firsthand experience. He's not Picard. He wasn't. There are 4 lights. He didn't have that.
Dave. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the O'Brien and like his his previous opinions of the Cardassians, what kind of led to this, and why it was like a believable accusation, and that's why the Cardassians were convinced and everything like that. What do you think about all that?
Right. Well, okay. So the whole net result of the episode is that they were trying to frame O'Brien. The Cardassian government specifically was trying to frame O'Brien because they wanted to show complicitness of Starfleet supporting the Maquis, because as we learned a couple episodes in the Maquis two-parter, the Cardassian counterparts to the Maquis, or they're doing something similar. They're doing that. The Cardassian government is funding them, sort of, and there's sort of a proxy war going on in the demilitarized zone. So that's kind of interesting. And how, but the problem with this era of Star Trek in television is that everything has to kind of wrap up in this episodic format.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not they wouldn't do it like this today.
No,
this episode is very much a 1994 thing. This would be dragged out over months, and there would be a longer arc, and O'Brien and other things would be more exposed, for better or worse. And we get kind of a very fast-paced version of that here in this era, which, like I said, I think that's part of the reason I go, wow, I remember thinking this was amazing at the time. And when I watched it tonight, I'm like, well, it's not as strong as I thought it was, but it's still good, but it's kind of, I think it's just because I've evolved as a TV viewer.
I had the same feeling about it. I was really looking forward to it. And then when we were watching it, I'm like, not a lot happens, really.
No, especially with O'Brien. Like, it's not really about him. It's about everybody else operating around him.
But it's about the Cardassian justice system, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but I just mean from a character level, it's kind of like about like Odo and Cisco and Keiko and all, anyone else who ends in an O had to save O'Brien. They're big O. So
I think that if you consider the Cardassian people a sort of a character, there
big O.
The man himself, he's been to the Tribunal. If you consider like the Cardassian, even the Cardassian state as what they are and what you think of that, it like at this point in Next Generation in Star Trek, like they're pretty nefarious. Like the occupation of Bajor and the Cardassian Wars and what we hear about Setlik 3, which we get a little bit more information upon. Right. It's like you would have to be in opposition to these people, like compared to like the Klingons and the Romulans, they're even less sympathetic than they were ever portrayed to be.
Yeah, any group that will not even give you really an opportunity to defend yourself, you're just going to be executed, and that has a justice system like that. Why wouldn't O'Brien hate them? Like why wouldn't anybody would hate that justice system?
So why do we hate? Like, why should we hate ourselves in America? Is what you're saying? Because we have.
Well, at least you can do. Oh, I agree with like when I know like for certain instances, like the president can basically convict you as a terrorist or whatever, anything like that. Whereas, but at least you like if you commit a crime in America, I think you have a lawyer or whatever, and you can. It's more based on money, though, right? Like if you have a lot of money, you have a better chance of getting off than not having money, right?
What I recently learned is that if your group or part of a terrorist group, you do not have any constitutional rights.
That's right.
If you get captured at all, right? Yeah. So that means no trial. They can
straight to Guantanamo. Believe it or not, straight to jail.
Right? Yeah. Go straight to jail. Do not pass go. Yeah.
Do not pass go.
Exactly.
And then plea deals in general are there to kind of have a speedy trial that does not traditionally help the accused at all. And for the most part, they don't really understand exactly where they stand because they usually have like a public defendant, right?
Well, this episode reminds me a lot of the case that happened in North Korea, that where this kid was there. He's an American kid. He was a tourist, and he pulled down like a propaganda like political poster off the wall in this hotel, and they had him on camera, and then they convicted him, and then he went to like a Korean prison camp, and then they just beat the crap out of him until he died, and that was basically what to me that's the best comparison of what this Cardassian justice system is.
He's no Rambo.
Convict him before he was even arrested, though.
I believe so. I
believe the interesting thing about this episode is that before O'Brien was even arrested, he was convicted,
right,
and sentenced.
Right.
And then he goes to trial, and they can't even bring evidence to trial because the conviction and the sentence has already happened.
Yeah.
And if it hadn't been for them discovering this altered Cardassian that was a spy, essentially,
boom,
he would have been murdered. He would have just been executed the next week and that's it.
That was
before he was even arrested, before he even knew anything, he was sentenced to death.
Dave, just before you start, how is this swift if like the trial happens and then you still have to wait a week to get executed? Let's right there, we put a mat, we put some tarp down, and we just get it done there.
They were a lot faster in the French Revolution. They just lined you up and put you down to the guillotine, and that was it.
It's not that efficient at all.
Right. Well, what can we learn about the Cardassian people and their history and why they are the way they are, based on the glimpses we get from this episode and the episodes that came before it? The Gull, who's played by David Warner, who tortures Picard in the two-parter. I can't remember the name of right off the top of my head right now. He talks about how the Cardassian people were kind of a broken people and how they had to turn to the military which is kind of a metaphor to the Germans and World War I to II and all of those things, and how they became it. And the Cardassians are supposed to be, I guess, the Nazis of the 24th century, right? Like
they have, I think they also have like some ties to communist countries as well.
Right. But they're the totalitarians. Like they're the worst.
Yeah.
Like how bad you can imagine a spacefaring totalitarian state that's made up of aliens, I suppose.
They don't seem to have a dictator.
A military civilization, but you also have like the Obsidian Order, which is above the military even. So you have like a CIA or a KGB
a KGB, a secret police
that has no oversight.
So devil's advocate, because like Garrick's not in this episode, maybe he's not here to kind of explain to us why maybe this is a good thing, but we get some of the characters
should have been a two-parter.
Garrick should have been.
Yeah, Garrick should at least given his opinion on this judicial system, and
what was happening.
I think he would have agreed with it.
Okay, and like here, devil's advocate, if you will, like is what the net benefit. The one thing that this conservator tells us is that on Cardassia, all crimes are solved. There is no unsolved crimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No unsolved mysteries.
Nobody's worried. Nobody goes out in fear because
all crimes are solved.
All crimes are solved.
If they even suspect you of the crime, you're done.
Yes. Pretty much.
Well,
and Garrick loves it.
The evidence could be circumstantial and thin at best, and they can still hold a conviction over you, as we can see with O'Brien. They didn't really have any legitimate, hard-pressed, like any type of evidence, minus his declaration that he did not trust the treaty and did not like Cardassians.
Yes.
But how much do we know about like Cardassian history? Have they been through a lot of revolutions and a lot of civil wars and those type of things that they ended up with?
Those things they don't tell us.
Yeah.
They haven't given us those specifics yet. We just know that they were not doing well. Although Picard also told us that they were a people of art and and great culture, and that those things sort of ruin them. Probably financially is what we were kind of led to believe, is like the economics of Cardassia led them to sort of this, to become this kind of evil state that's kind
Those
of
liberals.
subjugating people. Those damn liberals and their art and their, that's what happens. It all goes to hell, or this was at least the thinking. It seems credible. It seems like, because it makes them feel more real, right? Or does it? Like, does this whole thing, does the Archon, whoever her name was, does she seem
Mark Bach?
Yeah, the judge, the main judge of this case, who then does a complete 180 at the end. Marcon Mulbra
does not give. If you're a Cardassian watching this, you're like, well, they're gonna get him, and then it's like, oh, well, it seems like he's remorseful, so we're gonna let him go. In the honor of Federation Cardassian Treaty,
but still guilty.
Still guilty.
You're still guilty, but they just commuted his sentence, basically. And they're like, and that was good enough for them, I guess. They were just like, yeah, let us go home. We'll settle for whatever, and just
they should have just
croc chopped. I'm surprised Keiko didn't just stop and be like, whoa, we're not fucking leaving yet.
Let's play this out.
They are broadcasting this trial all over Cardassia. And it's propaganda. Their trials are propaganda. It's to make the Cardassians feel better, and they say that. Do we think that the moment that Sisko walked into that room with the dude, that feed cut off?
I don't think the camera showed that.
I don't know that they would have been broadcasting what happened next. I think
the camera cut
off.
That would have been a good opportunity to put that in the episode to make that point, but they didn't do that.
Yeah.
Cardassian
we are having technical difficulties or something.
Yeah, that would have been good.
Right.
I think they really did miss an opportunity to have Garak in this episode, and like you said, Jeff, that he would like it, like he would be for it. He would advocate for their justice system.
Yeah.
And he could explain it to the other characters, like a Keiko. Could you imagine Keiko talking to Garak about this? That would have been amazing.
That would have been
awesome. But how would Garak justify it once they figure out the truth that this was a whole plant?
He wouldn't, but he could.
He is a spy, though, so he
that's something Gul Dukat would do.
Sorry,
like I'm just saying, like if Gul Dukat was there instead of Garak, right? Like in this type of like it's Sisko and he's talking to either one of those people. They happen to be there while this is happening,
right?
Advising the character, the crew,
right?
And they say, like Garak would say, "Well, this is the efficiency of the system," and I think Dukat would probably say something very similar, right? But once you find out that this was all a plant, this was all a plot by the Cardassian government, I don't know how Garak would react to it. I think Dukat would probably be.
I think Garak would have known. I think if Garak was in the episode, he would have led them to realize what was going on.
Yeah, and that would have been good too. That would have been better than like Bashir figuring it out.
Yes.
Yeah. I hated that.
Garak would have figured. He would have gone, "Hey, this is shit we did. This is what."
Yeah.
And they would have figured it, and he would have led them to figure it out. So I think he would have started it with agreeing with the way the Cardassians do things, and then when they started uncovering stuff, going, "Hey, just so you know, Cardassians do this stuff," and they would have figured out what was going on.
Yeah, like he would have said, "This makes sense how we do things," and it's like, "Well, we know he's innocent." It's like, "Well, Doctor, then you have to figure out why they're doing this then, because if he isn't guilty, then there must be a reason why. Find out the why, and you could solve this issue."
Right, because everything with Cardassians is like a genuine, authentic rod, and this is absolute proof, and like everything with them is like that, right?
Right. But how do you reconcile that? Because they are like these people that have immaculate records and are like all about truth and whatever. But on the other hand, they do clearly do dirty-handed shit. They do like
but they would pin it on the specific person, saying that the system works properly, but someone was trying to circumvent the system. And then because they figured it out, or because it was revealed, oh, the system works because this revelation occurred, and now we can punish the rightful parties.
But it didn't occur because of the system. It occurred.
That's how they present it, though.
I know. Oh, I know. But, you know. Go ahead.
They'll just spin it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
They're the masters of propaganda in the Star Trek universe.
Yeah, they are. That's for sure.
Evidenced by the fact that there's always somebody watching TV outside.
That and also the fact that when the TV isn't airing, you also hear like propaganda, like 1984 being like said on the loudspeakers. When they first show Cardassia, you actually hear on the loudspeaker like an address saying like, you know, I don't know what the exact wording was, but it was like, you know, remember, this is for the betterment of Cardassia, something like that. It was presenting this information. They might as well have said war is peace, you know, freedom is slavery, you know.
There's certainly you know, the one species that, you know, they don't seem to, they're indoctrinated, you know, more than anybody else, I would say. Maybe even more than the Dominion are the next closest, and that's why they ended up joining the Dominion. You know, and so that, like, they made sense to go that way. The Klingons and the Romulans.
The Romulans are a little bit like that, I think, too.
And
the Klingons have their own doctrine, and so the Federation. Like all of these states, if they believe in their philosophy, their respective philosophies. The most of their citizens and the most of the characters you meet from these different places or these different groups, they tend to be on board. Not always. There tends to be like, you get like a Michael Eddington once in a while who's like
but at the same time, like all of the different races seem to like work entwined with each other. Like Klingons have their way of thinking, but at the same time, they're always presented at this point with an understanding of like the Federation, right? They might not necessarily agree with it, but you can still work with them in that kind of system, and they'll also kind of like appreciate parts of that cunning.
Right. I have another question too, is about like just this whole backstory for this episode, because this was set up in The Wounded, where we meet, you know, Captain Max, or was it Maxwell, right? I think who was the captain of the Rutledge when O'Brien was there. And we meet Boone, who's not the real Boone. He's the Cardassian guy Boone, but he was there too. And then a whole bunch of guys who died back then. But that whole era, so which is basically, it traces back to like the late 2340s, which would have been like 25 years before the events of this episode. So this is way back. Like O'Brien would have been 25 years ago. How old is O'Brien? Like,
I'm guessing O'Brien's 45, so I'm guessing he's like 20.
But this is the reason why he continued on with Starfleet. So
right. So and they would have been in like not the new uniforms at that point. They would have still been in the like
the red ones,
uniforms,
like the Wrath of Khan style uniforms.
Is that what year it is in Wrath of Khan? What year is it?
No, but like those uniforms continued for a long time.
With those
uniforms like were they lasted.
The Enterprise C uniforms.
They still wear those, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, because remember, Jeff, when we did the in the radio theater, we did the the episode where Q, Tapestry.
Yes.
Where Card is back as the ensign and he's wearing that old style uniform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think
at some point they switched to that. In the 2350s they switch it over to the to like the one like they're wearing in the first season of Next Generation.
Mm-hmm.
The 23. Oh, so 20 years before Next Gen starts?
About 10 to 15 years before.
Okay. I didn't know that. It's always goes kind of confusing. Like, and like, who decided that? That would, like, this is the year they wore the uniform, and
Well, they had to kind of figure this stuff out as they were going because, like Undiscovered Country is only 3 years before this movie. right? Or this episode, I'm sorry, of TV, right? And so like they were making a lot of those things, and Generations will be coming out this same year, as I mentioned. And so they had to kind of like figure out, okay, when did these uniforms sort of flip over? And they never give you a very specific date, but we know that we see this era has this uniform, and then the earliest chronological example we have of like the new uniform, the first the TNG uniform is when it's kind of like when Beverly Crusher's having this weird, crazy flashback to when Jack Crusher's body was being shown to her by Picard in like some kind of weird. I can't remember the episode exactly, but do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's when Picard still has hair. He's not fully bald yet in that flashback. And so he like that's the earliest example we have of somebody wearing that other one. Anyway, that's a long thing about uniforms.
Okay. I mean, what did you guys think about the opening of the episode where we got a great long shot of the runabout interior? I really noticed how nice it was.
Is that really what you want to talk about, Jeff? The runabout interior shot? That was.
Well, they got the double pad transporter going on. They got it's a nice little setup they had.
Jameel's having some technical issues.
Because sometimes they only have the single pad. So, they have the double pad in this one.
Maybe instead of the double pad, a single pad. Here, I want to ask you, Jeff, about Odo. In this episode, Odo kind of goes out of his way. He's like, I'm a lawman.
Yeah, he does.
I'm trained in the Cardassian legal system.
It might as well have been an Old West story. They could have this could have been an original series episode where they're down the Old West and Odo's Spock and Spock's like, I'm an old lawman. I'm qualified here.
Is that? Well, I don't know if that's what I would assign to it, but. I don't know if Spock would have assumed this role. It was just kind of like what you're thinking of the space hippie episode where he's like, guess what? I'm also a space hippie on my off time.
I'm also, and I like to pretend to be a lawyer.
So he knows so much about the legal system, being a witness, but does not know what his role is allowed and not allowed to do.
No, he was like, she was like, I guess if you're fully trained under Gul Dukat, then by all means you can be the Nestor to the defendant.
I think he was. I think he knew. I think he was feigning that he didn't know the rules.
Yeah, he knew the rules. Do you think this is a good for their relationship between these two characters? This kind of the events of this episode and sort of.
Well, I think once
have a relationship.
No, they don't really know much about each other at this point, and they never really interact much in the future. There is very, very little Odo O'Brien stuff in the series.
And when they do have stuff, they don't seem to care about each other. Like they're kind of like, this is my job, and hey, buddy, I want you to stick around, but
But there's a level of respect that is kind of built over this scene. This scene was a very great scene, and it seems like the only meat that Miles has for the entire episode, and then the rest is just standing there, right?
Yeah,
I think these scenes with like Odo and O'Brien are much better than anything Odo or O'Brien has with Keiko.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We didn't even need to bring that up.
I don't think before this episode and after this episode we need that much Odo and O'Brien stuff, because O'Brien, he's law abiding. He follows the rules. He doesn't get into trouble. So Odo just kind of leaves him to do his thing because
it's true.
And knows that he'll just do his thing to protect the station.
And Odo's staying away from him because he's always around Bashir.
And when O'Brien and O'Brien, when he does do bad things, it's always like he's undercover for the Federation.
Yeah.
Or Odo's not even involved. So.
But part of what they do in Star Trek is they tend to take they'll take X character, right, and they'll put them in some kind of peril, right, or they'll put them on trial, like when Dax was on trial to be extradited or whatever. Like sometimes it's courtroom stuff, sometimes it's more immediate threat. But what the other crew members come to their aid and that kind of has this bonding experience. This can be an accelerant for us believing that these characters have sort of bonds and and experiences that make the like sort of like the emotional connections real, right? And so O'Brien and Odo get this, but like I'm always trying to like understand what are the connective tissues between like the relationships of this crew, because unlike the next gen crew, especially, like they don't have that. Like there's Kira and Odo, but then there's Cisco and Kira. So there's like this, so you have like Kira as a bridge for those two, and then you have like O'Brien and Bashir, and
there's no bridge for O'Brien and Odo. That's the answer, Dave.
Not really. Yeah, like Odo doesn't hang out with Bashir or O'Brien, or Worf really later on. And like it was amazing to me after Rene Auberjonois died that Alexander Siddig had to defer to Nana Visitor on him and saying, I didn't really know Rene very well. You worked with him on a show for 7 years and you didn't know him very well. Like, or you didn't.
They did the lines.
You don't have much to say about him after he's died, you know? And like,
if they didn't have a lot of scenes together through those 7 years, and they probably weren't on set together a lot and wouldn't have had a lot of time to hang out, because it's not like the actors are just going to be on set when it's not their scenes.
Right. And Alexander Siddig had a lot of time off in the earlier seasons.
Yeah, clearly they weren't using him as much. And I'm not saying it's necessarily bad, but it's definitely all noticeable, because how Deep Space Nine is not a conventional Star Trek show, right? We all know that, but it just this episode, I'm like, like normally if this was like Riker, they grab Riker while he's on the way to Risa. You know, like the whole crew would be working away in a very similar manner to what we see tonight. But I feel like there would just be way more emotional stakes to it, you know, because
the only one who gives a crap, Dave, is Keiko.
Keiko. I think Odo's the only one who gives a crap. He's the only one I believe.
Odo, like he does care, but like he's doing it because he knows the Cardassian system's, I think, messed up, and he's just like, I think he's like, okay, he needs my help.
He wants justice.
He's doing it for justice, not for O'Brien.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he believes O'Brien after O'Brien has that conversation there. And you can see him kind of ease back and kind of like, okay, like I've cross-examined him basically, and I believe with what he's saying, my understanding and experience with the Cardassian system. So how do we proceed? Sorry, Ashley.
The Enterprise cared. We didn't see them, but they were there.
Yeah. That's right. You can just write it in dialogue. Yeah, the Enterprise is patrolling the border right now.
Yeah, but I guarantee you that it wasn't the Federation going, oh, well, let's just send the Enterprise. It was probably Picard going, we're going.
O'Brien's in trouble. He's on trial.
Yeah.
So we're going to install a cloaking device and sneak in and get him, but there was a coolant leak which prevented it from working.
Coolant leak. My question is, once Cisco found out that they were harming O'Brien, what did Cisco do to that judge lady? Because he said he would hurt her.
He punched her like he did Q. The cameras are off. We didn't get to see it.
He said, is that a threat? And he said, yes, it is.
Yes. If that sounds like a threat, it is.
Yeah, it is. He had no problem.
Very diplomatic.
It still is.
I mean, and O'Brien has some good like comebackers. He's like, I got nothing to say in this court. I love my parents. You know, like
I love them just fine.
My favorite is when Keiko is like, I will not testify against my husband. Even if you did, what the fuck do you have to say? He didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Is it not true, sir, that you said you hated the Cardis? I don't want to answer that.
They would say, did your husband say that he hates Cardassians?
Well, I'm sure he would be like, oh, yeah, shit, yeah, of course. That
every day of the week, you don't know how many times he says.
I remember when it was that kid in the episode Cardassians that he had to have the dinner with, the Keiko, said you said a very ugly thing. He's the only one who would know that O'Brien said that. So he's the one who ratted him out here.
No, the Obsidian Order has like spies everywhere. They probably
Did they have a listening device in that stew that Keiko was making them eat that night?
I don't know. Garrick is on that station.
True. Yeah, and we know he does do deals for them sometimes.
I saw a thing, like a documentary thing or whatever, where Putin poisoned a guy through his underwear. He was like the leader of the opposition in Russia or whatever. He poisoned him through his underwear. I mean, that's something like Garrick would do. He's a tailor.
He's a tailor. That's why I got into the biz.
So wait, did the gentleman have like a wedgie? Like he got like a wedgie and the
No,
poison
he
went-
went. He put on his pants, whatever. He got on a plane, and then he got sick when they were in the air. They had to land the plane, and then he went. Then they took him and they flew him to Berlin, right? And then he went into a coma, and then they found out what was wrong with him because in the first hospital in Russia, they wouldn't say what was wrong with him, and they were all confused. And then they flew him to Berlin, and like, yeah, he's poisoned. And then, right? And then, so what ended up happening was he got better, and then he flew back to Russia, where then they charged him for like violating some bullshit parole, and then they threw him in jail for 2 years. But yeah, that's a fun fact in Russian history. But we're not there yet for Double F at Jeff.
Fun facts in Russian history here tonight.
Russian politics, current events.
Current events.
Yeah.
Why didn't you try to kill him?
I loved O'Brien. I loved I love my parents, and just his outrage was hilarious to me.
Federation citizen Miles O'Brien.
Yeah.
They're like, whatever, give us your molar.
My wife is the most loveliest woman I've ever known. It's just
Yeah, she's very sweet and decent, and she makes me eat this Cardassian stew sometimes.
Are they torturing you? There was some bad dentistry when I first got here.
oh my
There's
god.
a bad dentistry. Yeah.
Did he get his
They were
molar back?
scanning his head. No, I think they kept it.
Because
And they took some of his hair, too.
Convicted felon on Cardassian Prime.
Jeez.
They got to keep that shit.
Does he?
That was some
replicate
interesting
it?
dentistry, though. Because they could pull out the molar without any blood. It was just like a clean pull out.
It's like, why is O'Brien always the guy that they end up giving the roles where it's like, yeah, you're gonna get tortured, you're gonna get put into a prison for a year, and you gotta deal with that, and then everything with O'Brien, it's like physical torture.
I think it's because
Maybe
of
he
his
liked it.
already salty demeanor.
Yeah.
They start to give him small things like that, and he does well with it. And then they give him meteor ones, and
Right.
he acts the shit out of it.
No, he does. He kills the episodes for sure. And I get why they probably write an episode like that. And they go, this would be good for O'Brien.
Yeah. Oh, so
This is the beginning of the
Oh,
real
he's
beginning.
really good at that shit.
Are they
Yeah.
going to give
This
it
is
to
the real
Bashir?
beginning of the O'Brien must suffer arc, right? And they did it because they want O'Brien's the everyman. He's not even an officer. He's an enlisted guy, right?
Yes.
And he's the Charlie Brown or whatever your metaphor is. And he
You get to an officer.
right, yeah, he's a senior petty officer, and he's meant to be, I guess, somebody that anybody can connect with. So they're like, if you make him suffer, that makes you empathize more with I guess him at least, and then gives you more of a connective to the show versus like trying to ask you to relate to Odo or to
Or
relate
Bashir.
to
Bashir's the
Bashir,
preppy goody two shoe kid.
Get him.
That's who
and
he
who is Cisco,
Cisco's like, I don't know. He's like
the
the
dad.
dad.
He's the single dad.
I think he's like the self-made
Military
man.
man.
Yeah, the self-made man kind of, like because his father was like, like a chef, like he didn't come from the military or Starfleet or anything.
Came from owning his own restaurant. He was a successful business owner where there's no money, and it doesn't, but he had lots of customers where he made no profit.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Because people want fresh cooked jambalaya. They don't want to replicate it.
And they want Mr. Cisco, talking to you about your day and whatever was going on, and he would.
Wouldn't you want fresh jambalaya instead of?
I would go to
replicated
his
shit?
I would too. I would go for the atmosphere.
I
like a jazz.
jambalaya, but if the owner is walking around talking to everybody constantly, I am fucking out of there.
Yeah.
I am not.
Yeah, that's a
They
red
have
flag.
they have headphones in the future. They have to have headphones in the future. Just like
Just like have a little card on your table that says, "No, Mr. Cisco, I don't want to talk to you during my dinner." Please.
You have two sections of the restaurant. The owner bugs you part, and the owner leaves you alone.
This is to take out. Sorry, this is takeout.
In the back, you can get the tube grubs for Nog.
Yeah. Only certain kinds of bugs.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be next week.
Yeah,
that actually gets said next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you really like bugs. Only certain kinds of bugs.
Certain kinds of bugs. It's like, really? You're picky? The Ferengi, you're picky with their bugs?
Yeah. Yeah, we don't just eat any bug.
Right.
Only the best.
Okay. Anything else?
Goes all the way through.
Anything else? The ending, which I didn't understand at all. It didn't make any sense.
I didn't like the ending.
You're telling me that this man, for the last couple of days, maybe a week, has been tortured and imprisoned, almost died via execution. Don't worry about it. Just relax. Go on vacation. Like this is some trauma, man. You don't want to be alone, right?
Well, there's no Troy. There's no Ezri.
Jaemeel, he has to suck it up because the lift at Ops needs him. It stops sometimes, and they need O'Brien to make sure that doesn't happen. So he needs to suck it up and get over the Cardassian shit. I mean, that's all there is to it.
The lagoon. He's going to the lagoon, so he's gonna wake up in the middle of the night screaming, right? Because the trauma he had. That's very relaxing.
And then he's gonna wake up and he's gonna remember his friend he killed in the imaginary prison. And
what happens if, like, in his hotel in the lagoon, like, there's like turnover service, and they decide we're gonna, provide him with a meal in the morning in bed, and he wakes up and just judo chops the person to death because he thinks he's in, jail again.
Could happen.
Trying to escape for his life.
Yeah,
and that's what we didn't see in between the episode.
But yeah, shouldn't he need some kind of counseling?
Is he going to have a panic attack when the hotel provides him with a free toothbrush?
There you go.
O'Brien's nightmares must be horrifying.
Yeah.
The funny thing is,
they're only going to get worse.
Bashir
and technical reports.
Yeah.
Oh no!
His spiraling insanity explains his increased friendship with Bashir.
Bashir's nightmare is is finishing second to the valedictorian. That's Bashir's nightmare.
Right.
Brian's thinking about getting his hair torn out.
His parents visiting him at the station.
Yeah, his parents coming up.
That's his trauma. The parents visiting.
That's his trauma.
Yeah.
You don't understand, Chief.
Who switched jobs too much. He didn't like his dad who switched jobs all the time. Or something. Section
31's waking him up in the middle of the night. Stuff like this.
Who goes into a room? Oh, the lights aren't working. Let me go deeper into the room where there's more darkness.
Yeah, that was hilarious scene. Like, who are you? Is that the Marquis? Yes, that's right. It's like, it is the Marquis. And just so you know,
let's start with that.
This guy's not one of us. Yeah, this wasn't us.
We didn't know anything about those photon torpedoes.
He's
like, we totally would take the photon torpedoes.
And don't turn around until the lights turn on.
And he still turns around. It's so slowly. So slowly.
Yeah, and he's like, well, who else would want photon? Oh, you're gone. Okay.
Just chased after them. They're just there.
Yeah, he could have just hit his comm badge and go, security. If somebody's whoever's 2 feet away from the infirmary, arrest them.
Check the cameras for anyone leaving infirmary in the last 5 minutes.
Or
question every single person there.
He's too smart for that. He was in the shadows.
And then go, okay, whose voice sounds kind of like that? This is not hard.
There was no investigation on that. They did not care who told them that or why. They didn't care.
We have a Maquis guy in our ranks here on the station.
O'Brien's gonna die in a few days. We don't care.
But it doesn't matter. Odo's security chief. If that guy doesn't get shot, Odo has no idea what's going on.
That's true.
No, right. He's going to get shot first. Or he's making a shady deal with Quark. One or the other.
Quark.
No Quark in this episode, by the way, really, right? Was he in this?
Nope.
I don't think
No.
so.
No, I don't think he appears. No Jake.
Well, is Jake on the show? I mean, come
Jake
on.
is busy, okay?
Jake
Jed Zier's barely in this.
Jetsi is not in a lot of these early episodes. I mean, she really isn't.
Yeah.
She comes
a
and
lot of these
goes.
characters aren't. Like Cisco isn't in this as much as you would think he'd be.
Well, he
No,
directed
this is
the
one of his
episode.
guys.
Not a ton of Cisco.
Why is Kira like all up on O'Brien and saying O'Brien could have done it? It's like, bro, you've been working with him for like a year plus. Do you think it's in his character to do something like that?
Yeah, like Kira, you would think Kira's like damn Cardis because she hates the Cardis too.
She would think that he's being railroaded. She's seen their court system,
Right.
but like, nah, he might have done it. We don't know.
Yeah, that was out of character. That was bad writing.
Yeah, like so, like it's like the beginning of this like potential for the show, but it's still in this second season, not quite working yet, not quite what the show's full potential. Like we know how good the episodes will become, and I don't know exactly what changes for the cast, because I feel like that energy largely comes from the cast. Maybe it was episodes like this. Maybe this was starting to give them a feeling that the show was starting to get more safe. Maybe they felt like they were finally getting out of the shadow of Next Gen. Maybe
I think
now
also
that they weren't gonna be on the air anymore.
I think also, Dave, that the all the actors on the show kind of saw like the show didn't really have a direction. It was kind of like who's like they kept making a lot of ensemble episodes too, like the Maquis, and I think everybody was kind of getting tired. Like they wanted like, and I think this is a great example of like it's an O'Brien episode, and it's like what they could have done with O'Brien, but they had all the other characters kind of like they kind of were trying to meld the two, and they're like, okay, we're gonna keep going down that road, and they eventually basically make the same episode later with O'Brien, and it's way better. With I've mentioned it several times when he has his imaginary friend in the in the prison where he's stuck for like 75 years.
That's a better episode than this episode.
Oh, by far. And but this episode to me is like the prequel.
Yeah, it's the first of the series of O'Brien's
O'Brien Must Suffer. Yes. Okay. Anything else, guys? Anything
Are we gonna get to FF with Jeff?
Double F with Jeff. Double F. Double F. Double F with Jeff. Fun facts coming to you. Okay. Production designer. Herman F. Zimmerman. Yeah, I'm working on it. It's in production. I was trying to get Audacity to work, and I was, I had a whole thing, but
okay,
you know
Jeff.
what? We got, it's coming. I apologize. I apologize to the fans of Deep Space Nine at Nine-ish. I'm working on the theme song of Double F with Jeff. It's coming. Okay. Production designer Herman F. Zimmerman has said he took inspiration in the set design from George Orwell's 1948 book, 1984, of The Final Look of Cardassia. Zimmerman explains, Spartan, uncompromising, merciless, and are all adjectives that you could use to describe Cardassia. This is the first episode of DS9 to be directed by a cast member, Avery Brooks in this case. According to the Star Trek DS9 companion, Tribunal is a so-called O'Brien Must Suffer episode. Robert Stromberg of Illusion Arts, Inc. created the matte painting of the city of Cardassia Prime.
So it's just a painting?
I guess he painted it. Yeah, do you have it?
Well, not this shot, but there's another shot where they show the wide angle of the planet.
Okay, Julian Christopher, who played the Cardassian Overseer, was among the actors considered for the role of Worf on Next Gen, but he was beaten out by Michael Dorn.
Really?
Yeah, that's
So
a double
one
F
of
with
the judges?
Jeff
I don't know if I have a photo of them.
coming at you. There you go. Double F with Jeff, number 7. Avery Brooks enjoyed directing this, particularly for directing Cole Meany and Fritz Weaver, as well as featuring Cardassia for the first time.
Well, this
The
is
discussion
first time.
to which Evek Yeah, this is the first time they've been to Cardassia.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
The
To Cardassia.
Yeah, the discussion to which Evek alludes occurred when O'Brien contacted Gulivek for assistance in exterminating a colony of Cardassian voles, which had made its home aboard DS9. At the time, he was credited simply as Cardassian officer. Oh, right. Okay. Gulivek. The original title of this episode was Dark Tribunal instead of just Tribunal. They were like,
Yes, it was pretty dark.
They were like, we know it's
Light
dark.
enough.
It speaks for itself.
They watched it and went, it could be darker. I think
They've,
maybe we call it Tribunal.
They bring up the courtroom if you have it. The courtroom is a redress of the Hollow Suite set.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's all it is, eh?
That's what it is.
They didn't go to Cardassia then.
No, they just went up in Course Bar. At one point, Odo becomes part of Miles O'Brien's defense team. Interestingly enough, Rene Auberjonois would later become a lawyer on Boston Legal alongside other Star Trek alumnus William Shatner.
Denny Crane.
That's a double F with Jeff. Ba-da-doo, ba-da-doo. I gotta get some sound. Okay. This was the first episode to air after The Next Generation ended. The reference to the Enterprise being called to the Cardassian border may have been a nod to this. This takes place in 2370.
Like every episode of the season.
There we had a couple. And there is what's that? That's it.
All right. You got something else?
One more thing. Yeah, there's a connection to, like you said, to the wounded. O'Brien's character arc from this story is referred to. That's it for Double F with Jeff.
Minstrel boy to the war is gone. In the ranks of death you will find him. Oh. Ratings, Jeff. You're going to start us off tonight on Tribunal.
Like a 7.4. I think that's fair.
All right, Jaemeel.
I'll give it a 7.6.
Ashley?
I'm right in the middle with a 7.5.
And to Kevin?
6.
What's wrong with you?
It's above average,
Dave
but
will go
barely.
8. Dave will go 8.
I give this about an 8. Yeah.
Yep. I figured so.
I was going to give it an 8 before you said it. I'm not just saying because
I had a feeling in my bones.
yes. 8.0. Okay. So that's an average of 7.3. So that is not bad. That's pretty good. 7.3 out of 10. The next episode we'll be doing is called, this will be the final for season 2, Jeff. We're finally going to be out of
Yep. The Jem'Hadar.
and the Jem'Hadar. We know that's coming next because we did it on Radio Theater.
We're
some
getting
time ago.
Jake back. He's finally back. And he's going to go and have a camping trip.
Yeah, it's actually a 2-parter, right?
It is a 2-parter.
Is a 2-parter, but we'll be discussing it as a singular thing. So that's exciting. Part
It
1
isn't a
and 2.
2-parter. We did it on Radio Theater.
It's not a 2-parter.
No, it's a one-parter.
It's not.
It's a one-parter.
It's not a 2-parter,
No.
but it feels like it is
It's
for some
It's
reason.
a
Why?
finale.
Why does it feel like
It's
that?
not a 2-parter. It's one episode.
The next season starts off with the 2-parter.
Okay, so we start off with a 2-parter, and it kind of leads right off from where this
Right.
next episode.
It's kind of like a
starts.
3-parter.
It's a 3-parter.
yeah, it's a
It,
bit
Is
okay,
the
where it is
first
the
episode?
finale.
Is the first episode of the 3rd season called The Search?
I think
Yes.
it is. No, Defiant, isn't it?
No, it's
no,
The Search.
Defiant comes later.
The Search, yeah.
Yeah. But it's the first. It's the introduction of the Defiant. That's what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wonderful.
I'm excited. Oh, Jeff, are you excited? We're finally out of season 2. Almost.
Yes, finally. Well, we get one more camping trip with Jake. And that's about it. I mean,
The average rating for season 2 so far has been a 6.3.
That's about right. What was
compared to season 1, which was an average of 6.5.
Well, I think season 3 will be in the 7s.
Yeah. So right now, as a series, all these episodes equate to about 6.4. So not like it's
Sounds about right.
it
This
is.
season didn't have a move along home, so that's where it lost a couple of points.
And move along home. I don't know what the closest thing it did. It had some moments. It like the high point we've had so far this season is maybe Blood Oath.
It had some
crossover.
Good episodes. It had some good episodes, but I'm just saying it didn't have that like really good bad episode.
It didn't have like just that iconic. No. Wow, they did that, huh?
Have we been quoting anything from season 2?
They did. They did do one, but it's not iconic. It's the one where Cisco's in love with a dead woman, or she was a ghost, or whatever she was. What was that episode we watched? It was awful.
Name a quote from that.
No, it was awful. I'm just saying they did do a bad episode.
Was it called The Alternate or something? Like
Isn't that the one
that episode was called?
With the what's her name? The woman that it's a psychic projection.
Yeah, the political.
Oh yeah.
That's the one they're talking about, right? Or no?
I know that.
Yes, it is. But no one's quoting anything from that episode.
Because we can't even remember the name of the episode, let alone a word of dialogue from it.
No.
The Alternate.
No. It doesn't have an Ella Moraine!
No. No, it's not The Alternate.
No, and like compared to season 1, which had like the Negus and had some interesting other stuff in it, like this season's been like they've been setting up interesting concepts, but I think season 2 is mostly just set up for good shit that's going to come.
World building, a lot of
world building, and I guess like looking back on it, I think can be mostly because I didn't really get back into Deep Space Nine until season 4, until like Worf joined the show, and then I was like, well, I guess I got to take this seriously now. Worf's here, and so I largely skipped season 2 and a lot of season 1 at the time, and I caught it here in syndication here and there. Season 3, I'm kind of hit and miss on. I'm not even quite sure if I'm up on everything in season 3, so I'm excited to keep going there.
Yeah.
3 seasons are, that's good. All right. Well, Jeff, I think that's a segue.
Okay. What is coming up, Dave, on all of our wide variety of shows that we have on our multiple platforms?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Jeff. We got all kinds of things here on Live Long and Podcast. Obviously, we have Tuesdays, Deep Space Nine. On Wednesdays, we're doing the original series TED Treks with our dad. Jeff, you know about that one. You're on it.
Yeah, I know about it.
We watch an original series episode every week. Dad picks a random episode. He goes, oh, how about this one? And we go, okay, Dad. And then we go, what do you think? He's go, oh, it was pretty good. But it was kind of weird.
He goes, it was interesting. It was, not what I remembered it being.
Yes, not what I remembered it, but it was still good. And it was made in 1968, so you got to take it for what it is.
Give it a break.
Give it a break. That's if you want more of that, tune in tomorrow, 8:00, when we're going to be doing the Galileo 7. That's the episode we're talking about tomorrow.
Spock's First Command.
Yes, Spock's First Command, and how and seeing how it happens when the aliens run on things, I guess. So it's gonna be. I'm excited to talk about that. And then on Friday, we're going to be doing our next installment of Star Trek Radio Theater. So we're doing mirror universe episodes for season 2 of Radio Theater, but we don't have a mirror episode in the Next Generation. So we're doing the closest thing, plus one of our favorites, which is yesterday's Enterprise. And yes, we have done this one before, but we're doing it again because why not? Because the first time didn't have sound effects. The first time was kind of like the pilot. So this is like a redo of the pilot.
Not good enough, damn it. Not good enough.
Not good enough. I will be reprising my role as Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Expect more of the same.
All hands.
Yeah. We're going to be having Kevin, you're going to be Richard Castillo this time.
Yeah.
We got Michael Chan, and you're also Worf. We got Michael Chan in the role of Lieutenant Yar. We got Jane playing Guinan, and she'll be picking up Wesley Crusher this time. We got Mott as Captain Rachel Garrett. And Jeff, you were playing two roles. You played these same two roles last time. You were also Richard Castillo last time. So now you can put all your energy into just these two.
I have to. The LaForge is no problem. The Riker is you never know what to do with Riker.
Riker's a tough one. Well, I think he's just kind of like this bigger than life.
Remember,
guy.
you have to put your
and
crotch
then Ashley,
towards Data each time when you when you
walk over every chair.
You pointed at the and Ashley, you'll be Dr. Crusher, reprising your role as Dr. Crusher. And we also have Adam Woodward joining us for this one, and in the role of Data. And the Klingon commander. So, check that out Friday night live. Plus, soon on Super Mater Brothers Podcasting, whenever the hell Big Brother Canada is going to start up the next season, we will likely be covering that. They just have teaser promos out. They just go, "We're coming back next season," and that's it. That's all they say. And we're like, "Well, are you going to give us a date?"
Nope.
Because some of us in the podcast game have to plan our lives.
Podcast game, love it.
I have a show I want to start recapping. The Curse of Oak Island.
Like back from the first episode? Isn't it like 20 seasons?
No. We'll do. They just finished the last season. Next season, I want to start doing live.
You want to do the last season? We're just going to cover the last season?
What? No, they haven't found the treasure. That show's going to keep going until they find the treasure.
I don't understand. What do you want to do in this podcast? What are we covering?
What they find.
The next season.
Wait, what? What are you
next
talking
season?
about?
Okay.
I have no clue what you're talking about.
You're losing me, Jeff, because I haven't watched the show.
Well, you're gonna have. Well, you don't have to be on the podcast.
Okay. I'm not saying I'm not going to be on the podcast. You're just not going to be.
Listen to our podcast.
Be a lot of parameters.
What's the show
here.
about? Well, you don't have to be a part of the podcast.
Well, he's the one making a stink. I'm saying I want to cover this. He's the one throwing out all these rules.
What the show's about? I have no clue about this show.
The Curse of Oak Island. It's about this treasure that's in Nova Scotia, where me and Dave's family is originally from. Like
down by Mater's
Cove. That there's this basically 200 years ago, these people found these wooden, like basically rounded wooded logs in like platforms every 10 feet down until 90 feet, when then it became booby trapped and flooded with ocean water. And so for like 250 years, people have been searching on this island for treasure, and they found all sorts of different things that say that somebody was there well before maybe even Columbus, or right around the 1500s, and built this like crazy contraption of a treasure vault with booby traps and all sorts of different things. And they've been trying to find the treasure ever since. So now there's these two guys.
Okay, we have our plot.
Yeah, these two brothers from Michigan that are trying to find it. The Lagina brothers, Rick, Marty, and the team. They're trying to find the treasure. But what's cool about it is it's close to our home, and we would have a lot of different. Like actually, one of the guys that's on the show, Carmen Legg, is actually related to us through Chris Mater, Dave. He's Chris. Gerald, like that side.
What, through his mother's side?
Yeah, through Natasha. Yeah, Natasha's like a cousin. Mm-hmm. So he's the blacksmith.
That they're not related to us. Then they're related to him.
But we're connected in some way.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. We're people we're related to are related to them.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, all this genealogy is riveting, but this is the Deep Space Nine podcast.
Right. All I'm saying is that's what. Yeah. This is.
Babylon 5 is out on HBO Max now.
Babylon 5. I heard it's remastered as well.
We don't get
remastered.
So the special effects they look crappy in HD though.
How many people watch Babylon 5 like per day? Like it's got to be like half a person. Somebody throws on an episode and does.
No, it is a science fiction.
After you watch it, you are nothing but an empty shell.
They made that show on no money. Like every episode of Deep Space Nine had like 3 times the budget of Babylon 5. And they did some great things. Bruce Boxleitner just did an interview on the other day. It's great. I was on YouTube.
Did you talk about Tron?
He mentioned Tron.
Okay. then that article might be worth reading.
Yeah,
I know one person
like,
who's actually going through and rewatching all of Babylon 5. So
Is it Dave?
I'll be there at the finish line with some
not me,
some
but I would love to talk to that person when they're done. Yes. And also trivial debates where we argue about movies, TV, sports, and more every month. We just did our episode for January at the end of that month. We're coming back in the end of this month, so check out all those episodes. So that was Eamon hosting with Jody, Chris, and I'm sorry, who was the third on that? Jason Doan. I'm sorry. Yeah, he was the last minute. Yeah, because it was supposed to be Ashley. That's why I couldn't.
I'm currently making my way through the episode, but I'm just getting so angry at points that I have to stop listening to it every so often.
No, well, that's what we aspire to do.
The music discussion right now, and Chris talked about Prince, and I had to turn it off.
Oh, that was tough.
He doesn't like
sometimes
Prince?
as the producer, I just have to sit there and I have to stay quiet.
Just mute.
Yeah, it's not easy.
No.
All right, Jeff, sign us off.
Okay, well, for all of us here at Live Longer Podcast and Deep Space Nine and Nine-ish, live long.